Hi, I'm Gayla Scrivener, ex-corporate girl and now work-from-anywhere adventure seeker. Creating a work-from-anywhere lifestyle isn't without its challenges, but those challenges certainly don't overshadow all the many benefits. What breaks my heart is seeing folks stuck and unhappy in a career and lifestyle when they want more out of life. I believe that we all have the opportunity to create the life of our dreams and earn a living in fun and creative ways to make our dream lifestyle a reality. You too can experience wonderful adventure and freedom as you live life on your own terms. In this weekly podcast, I share experiences when it comes to growing a lifestyle business through guest interviews, content marketing experience and perspectives, virtual leadership lessons, and I'll even throw in some travel adventures. My hope is through all the interviews, the tips, advice, and personal experience, you'll be inspired and motivated to keep going and creating your dream lifestyle. Life's an adventure. There's no time but the present to live life to the fullest. Hi there, and welcome to the 150th episode of the Gayla Scrivener Show. Wow, I can't believe it. 150 episodes. Now, I remember toying around with the idea of starting a podcast a long time ago and waffling at that idea. I was at a conference. I remember it clearly. I was at a conference hosted by Ray Edwards in Franklin, Tennessee, and it was 2017. Oh my goodness. I can't believe it has been that long. 2017. Wow. Well, anyway, I was at the Ray Edwards Copywriting Live event, and Cliff Ravenscraft and I happened to be sitting at the same table. And if you don't know who Cliff Ravenscraft is, well, in 2017 and prior, he was known as the Podcast Answer Man. And he's since rebranded and does other things, but podcasting is really still important in his messaging and his branding. He does a podcast. That's part of what he does in his content creation. But he no longer coaches folks on how to produce their own podcasts. But back in 2017, I believe Cliff was in this branding transition. But that didn't stop him from being passionate about planting the seed in me to spur me in starting my very own podcast. And if you ever listened or have ever met Cliff Ravenscraft, he is a passionate guy. I mean, he gets really riled up and he really cares, and that's the word for him. He's passionate and he has so much enthusiasm, and he challenges you and motivates you. He loves the challenging and motivating folks. That's very evident. Well, at the table with Cliff, we entered into a little conversation. Small talk, if you will. And I meagerly told him that I was thinking about starting a podcast. And he boldly, I remember this, he boldly asked me, "What's stopping you?" Well, I hem-hawed around, and before I could really give my full answer, he whipped out his phone, pulled up the voice recorder app, and started recording. And he proceeded to ask me a few little questions. It was like a mini interview right then and there. When he stopped recording, he played it back and said, "See, it is that easy. All you have to do is use that recording from your phone, right from your phone, and that can be an episode." And he told me just to get started. Well, those words were ringing in my ears, and his enthusiasm was like, yeah, I just need to get started. No more hem-hawing around. So I went back to the hotel room that day after the conference sessions were done, and I told my husband, Robert, that we were starting a podcast. Now, our very first episodes, it wasn't with this show here. The very first episodes podcast that I did was with the Been There Doing That podcast. Shortly afterwards, after we had gotten a few episodes of the Been There Doing That podcast under our belt, I started this podcast. And I started it as the Accomplish More podcast. But then over time, I moved it to a self-branded podcast to simply give me some additional flexibility in, subject exploration. So over this time, since 2017, now 150 episodes in for this show, I don't see stopping anytime in the future. In fact, podcast production has become a fantastic service that we offer through Scrivener Solutions. And over the last 150 episodes of this show, and the numerous episodes with the Been There Doing That show, as well as client shows, I've learned a few things along the way. And I thought I'd share with you what I have learned. Perhaps it'll help you as you start your very own podcast. Or if you already have a podcast in production, maybe these insights will help you too. I do hope so. So let's get started with the first one. My first lesson. I had to push through not liking my voice. It is really strange to hear your own recorded voice. Even though people tell me I have this soothing voice, to me, listening to my own voice just makes me feel, I don't even know how to explain it. I just don't like it. It was weird to me because sometimes, to tell you the truth, sometimes I sound just like my cousin Angela. Now, this shouldn't bother me because I really like Angela's voice, but such a strange experience to feel that I sound like Angela. And it doesn't make sense that since I'm not bothered by Angela's voice, why don't I like my own voice? Because we're very similar in the way we sound. It boils down to being just too self-critical. And I started podcasting with Robert for the Been There Doing That podcast. And it is much easier to talk with someone than to do a solo show and be talking to no one. I mean, talking to no one just is weird. And it's something that you have to get used to, let alone getting used to hearing your own voice. That's it. But as I got comfortable with the process of recording and trying to get used to my own recorded voice, it just seemed to get easier, with a duo. It was just easier to get started with a duo recording. That's what it boiled down to. And when I started recording solo shows and creating this show, to be completely honest, I still wasn't comfortable hearing my own voice. No. I just sucked it up and got over myself and just started recording. Yep. Sometimes you just gotta suck it up. And I worked through that uncomfortable feeling of listening to my own voice. Now, although I'm not as self-critical about the sound of my own voice nowadays as I used to be, all these episodes later, I'm still not keen on listening to myself. But over time, production has become easier, and I've learned a heck of a lot about myself. Yep. I learned a heck of a lot about the whole process, and I even learned more about you, the listener, who occasionally drops me notes, and I thank you. It has been overall a great experience. So my first lesson in producing my own podcast was just get over yourself and just record. You grow because of the experience, and that was huge. The second thing I want to cover in my second lesson was don't overthink, just start. Now, way back in 2017, before I met Cliff Ravenscraft, I was him-hawing around on making the decision to start this podcast. And until Cliff pushed me over the edge, I don't think I would have started. I was looking at all the how-tos and the online courses, and quite honestly, I was overthinking things when I should have just started recording. And that's what Cliff taught me. Just get over yourself, start recording, don't make it complicated. Yes, having a plan and a purpose are very good things to have, but sometimes over-planning can stop you before you even get started. And that was the case for me. I also see it happening with some of my clients. When they want to start a podcast, they let the start stop them. They're overanalyzing, over planning, when all they need to do is start recording. Now, back in 2017 and a while prior, I was doing a monthly newsletter. Yes, it was a direct mail newsletter to my face-to-face networking contacts. And that was my regular piece of content, with repurposing articles on a website as blog posts. And that's a whole nother show, but I think that direct mail newsletters are very important. We do that at Scrivener Solutions for clients as well. But I had stopped that piece of the marketing, and that could be a whole nother episode. But at the time, that's what I was doing. And I wanted to start something different to replace that direct mail newsletter. And the reason I was even thinking about doing a podcast was to begin to create this more of an online following where I would be represented on 2 platforms, and I was thinking, okay, recording, so podcast, and blogging, so I could repurpose that content and have it on 2 platforms. And I chose podcasting over video because, quite frankly, in my eyes, it's much easier than video. And I wanted to take the easier route. Not easy, but it is certainly easier, at least in my mind, in my head. I don't have to worry about what I look like, not for a podcast. What the background looks like, don't care. Editing audio also is so much easier than video is. So I could record no matter where I was at or what I was wearing. And truth be told, for these solo shows, I'm usually wearing yoga pants, a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, and my hair is a hot mess. And most of the time, I don't even like to wear makeup. So choosing podcasting narrowed my self-conscious and self-critical list way, way, way down to just one thing. I had to overcome listening to my own voice. So I tried to break the obstacles, so that I could get started. That one thing to suck it up and get over myself, that one thing being listening to my own voice, instead of a whole list of what am I going to look like? Is my hair doing right? Why is my hair all over the place? Do I have to dress up from the waist up? What's the background look like? So cutting out all of that, I thought podcasting is easier. I'm breaking down the barriers of getting started. And why I wanted to start the podcast was, yes, I wanted to grow an audience, an online audience, to help that audience in an area of my expertise. But in reality, get this, my close second why, and heck, it may be my top why, was to improve my skills, improve my experience, improve my messaging. If I don't stick my neck out and try to improve myself, how on earth can I help you? How on earth can I help anyone? That holds true for you too. You learn by doing. What you learn helps you serve others better. When you expand, your world expands. It's amazing. So getting back over to the over planning point. Yes, it would be a good idea to have a few episodes planned out and recorded before airing your first episode. Did I do that? Nope, not at all. Let's get it started. And yes, it would be best if you would have an outline of all your upcoming shows. But did I do that? No, I was stressed out. Heck, it's supposed to publish tomorrow. What the heck am I supposed to say? Those things would go through my mind. But sometimes it's best to just wing it. You learn from that experience and you get better. Set your publishing schedule and kind of use that as your guide and just hit the ground running. Don't let the start stop you. Just do. So my lesson 2 was go with what's easier. Don't overthink, just start. Now let's get into my number 3 lesson. One word, batching. Yes, Batching work in general is a good idea, but it's easier said than done. And I used to put off recording my episodes because it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much work involved. And oftentimes I waited to the last minute, which stressed me out even more. I was even too late in having my team help me, which would save me time. And after all, my team does need a little bit of lead time, and I'd end up staying up late and publishing myself or miss the deadline altogether. And it happens. And I always encourage my clients to record several episodes in one day or at one time so that Team Scrivener Solutions can work up more than one episode at a time. And for both ends, batching makes efficiency better. I mean, you're just more efficient when you block the time and do the same thing in a blocked amount of time. And again, honestly, it is easier said than done. But when I made that effort and that commitment of having a content retreat time, it was truly a game changer. I was swallowing my own medicine and following my own advice that I give to my clients. Batching. For example, right now, my content retreat time are Wednesdays. For me, I wanted to carve out a day a week to do that. Now, some people carve out one whole week, get it all done in the whole week for the next 4 to 6 weeks. And, you find a schedule that's right for you. But for me, and right now, my Wednesdays are reserved for a content retreat. And this is when I sequester myself and only focus on this podcast. And now I focus on blogs and videos for the Scrivener Solutions site. So I'm concentrating on the content for my companies, not the content for my clients. I'm just focusing on our business. And the other days of the week, I do have blocked times and blocked focus times for other things, but Wednesdays are my content days. I'm going to tell you, at first, it was painful as I would only get like one podcast done in a day. And by golly, I would tell myself it shouldn't take that long. And I would angst over it for hours. And I was just so frustrated. And by the end of the day, I was just so exhausted. But I, again, sucked it up. I worked through the frustration. And over time, my Wednesdays have become easier. In fact, I kind of look forward to them. And I had added some additional block time recently. It started back in November, I believe, which has helped my Wednesdays go a lot better. But I added in my daily morning routine a blocked time for daily writing. It's just daily free writing, and it has helped out a lot. This is where I just set a timer for 30 minutes. And then I get my little Chromebook out and I just free type my thoughts. I have a journal app that I use. It's called Penzu, and I like it because, hey, it looks like a traditional journal and I like the aesthetics of it, so it works for me. In the morning, 30 minutes, I set the timer and I just free write. And this has given me the time to get ideas floating around out of my head, ideas about anything and everything. Sometimes it's about business, sometimes it's not, whatever it is, but it is dedicated writing time. And I get these ideas and get them out of my head, not on paper, but digitally, the digital paper. And you know what's cool? Some of those ideas, in fact, a lot of those ideas have turned into podcast notes, making my Wednesday recordings so much easier. So I just chunk out a little bit of time every day and poof, my podcast notes are being created and recording time has cut down tremendously on my Wednesday content days. Like I said, now I get excited for my Wednesdays instead of feeling like they are a pain, and I don't seem to push off the recording task as much. At least I try not to, Sometimes I might falter a little bit, and now the time that I feel like I'm behind is not nearly as behind as I used to be. I'm not as last minute as I was in years past. And this year, I've added interview episodes, alternating with solo episodes. Every other week, I'd have an interview and then a solo. And this helps in a big way. First, I find it so much easier to have a conversation with a guest. I like talking with somebody else than just talking to myself. I know I'm talking to you, but there's not that immediate reaction like there is in an interview. So I schedule these interviews on Wednesdays because, after all, it is my content day and I'm in the zone. So that's really cool. And then alternating between guest and solo shows helps ease that stress of figuring out what to say all the time. So really, I just need like 26 guests in a year and then 26 solo shows. That doesn't sound nearly as intimidating. Besides, when you meet some of these fantastic people that appear on my show and listen to their perspectives and lessons, you're getting much more value because you're learning about their journey too. I think that, well, at least I hope that it's interesting to you as much as it's interesting to me. Like I said before, on my Wednesday content day, I have added blogs and video to the schedule of Scrivener Solutions website. And it is a team effort, I have to say, in producing the content. All the weight is not on me, thank goodness. But at the moment, I'm doing the Gear Up video series. And that's a learning process. I've got this podcasting process down, so I'm feeling like I can add video. But for reasons that I avoided video years ago, I am sucking it up and embracing this new experience and fixing myself up before I record a video and make sure that, hey, I'm paying attention to the lighting and the equipment and things like that. Over time, it will get better. Over time, it won't take as long for me to record because honestly, last Wednesday when I was recording a Gear Up video, it literally was like sucking the life out of me because it was like, why is this taking so long? Why am I having technical issues? But the following, like today, this Wednesday that I am recording this, much better, much, much better. So, Mama said that there'll be days like that. You just have to kind of work through those learning obstacles. But the whole process is getting better. It's getting better just by doing. And the blogs for Scrivener Solutions, the team are writing the blogs and I get to edit them. And that is awesome. No one on the team, though, is quite ready to participate in doing the how-to videos yet. But, they love being behind the scenes. What can I say? I'll go ahead and continue those because I think that those are valuable too because those are how-to and it drills down to exactly what buttons to push on your computer for any type of tutorial that we have. Lesson 3, batch, because it's truly a game changer in productivity. These are the 3 major lessons I've learned over the past few years to get to this point, to episode 150. Of course, there have been more lessons, but these are the 3 major ones. Now, if I were to do it all over again, would I do some things differently? Most definitely. I would. And in fact, when we help our clients with podcast production, we're getting them to avoid the mistakes that I had made. If I would have hired somebody to help me produce, maybe I would have avoided a lot of those mistakes. But if I let the start stop me, I would have never recorded my first episode. I just needed to dive in there and just start. Well, I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for being here for my 150th show. And I'm so glad that you're a part of my audience, and I hope you'll stay with me for a long, long time. Now, if you're interested in doing a podcast for yourself or are currently producing one, I invite you to grab the checklist that we use at Scrivener Solutions for our podcast episode production process. It's that very checklist that we use. And all you have to do to grab it is just go to scrivenersolutions.com/podcast checklist. And there's going to be a link in the show notes. And this checklist can be simplified, especially if you're starting out. And honestly, I did not do every single step at first. This checklist developed over time. I think it would have been super helpful if I were able to have a checklist like this to see what I could work up to. And again, you can grab that podcast episode checklist by going to scrivenersolutions.com/podcast checklist. Be sure to tune in next week as our Scrivener Solutions sound engineer and my husband, Robert, joins me. He's in charge of the audio side of things when it comes to podcast production for our company. He does things for our clients and everything like that. So we're going to talk about equipment, and he's going to give some hints on best recording practices to help in the editing process, to make the whole process just better. So until next time, have a fantastic week.